Welcome to this special episode of our podcast. As everyone in Sri Lanka knows, our country has just gone through one of the most devastating disasters in recent memory. Cyclone and flood waters have taken lives, destroyed homes, and displaced hundreds into shelters across the island. Many are still missing. Many more are living in uncertainty, watching the waters recede and wondering what happens next. Today, we're not going to talk about politics or engineering or economics. We're going to talk about the psychological effects of disaster. What happens to the mind when the world literally collapses around you, and what we can all do to support recovery in the weeks and months ahead. I'm joined by Emeritus Professor and Senior Consultant Psychiatrist, Professor Raveen Hanwalla, who has worked with people affected by floods, landslides, war, and trauma in Sri Lanka for many years. Prof. Raveen, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Radhika. And first of all, I just want to say to anyone listening who may have lost a loved one, a home, or a livelihood, what you are feeling right now is quite real and valid. There's nothing weak about being overwhelmed when everything familiar is washed away. In the immediate aftermath of a disaster like these floods and landslides, people may feel shock, numbness, or disbelief. And I think we go on autopilot when that happens, moving from place to place, doing what has to be done, not really registering the full meaning yet. Some others are crying, shaking, unable to sleep, while some may feel strangely calm or blank. All these reactions can be normal in the first days and weeks after disaster. The mind is actually trying to protect itself from a reality that is simply too big to absorb all at once.
So, if someone listening finds themselves not reacting the way they expected, maybe they're not crying or they feel numb, that doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, disasters don't come with one correct kind of emotional script. Some people cry, others become very task focused. They cook, they clean, they organize, shelter. Some may feel guilty that they survived when the others didn't. Some are angry at nature, at authorities, at fate, at God. Some just feel empty. I think, but the important message is our initial reaction is not a diagnosis. It is the mind's first attempt to cope with something quite overwhelming.
There's a strong urge, especially among helping professionals and volunteers, to do something for the psychological impact straight away. People organize debriefing sessions, group counseling, things like that. But you've often emphasized that in the first phase after disaster, mental health care isn't what people think it is. What should we really be focusing on right now?
Yeah, that's an important point. I suppose after disaster, the first priority for everyone is actually not really mental health, counseling, it's safety, shelter, and food. I know that sounds very basic, but then psychologically, it is also important. If a person doesn't know where they will sleep tonight, if their children are hungry, if they're still physically at risk from landslides or floodwaters, their brain is in survival mode. At the moment, the most powerful mental health intervention, within quotes, is to make them safe, dry, fed, and physically cared for. So only when the body begins to feel safe can the mind slowly begin to process what happened. The WHO and the many international guidelines, current ones, are very clear on that. The first line of support after disasters is not deep psychological therapy. It is restoring safety, meeting basic needs, providing clear information, and reconnecting people with their loved ones.
So, someone distributing food or dry clothes and medicines in a camp is already doing mental health work in a sense.
Yes, of course. So if you help someone move from a flooded house into safe shelter, if you arrange clean drinking water, if you help them to contact a missing family member, or understand what services are available, you're already supporting their psychological recovery. In fact, you are telling their nervous system, you have survived, you are not alone, and there is the next step after that. Yes.
You mentioned that not all psychological interventions are helpful in the immediate aftermath. We sometimes see well intentioned people offering trauma counseling in the first few days, where they ask survivors to recount everything they saw and felt. What does evidence say about that?
Yes, actually, the science has changed actually, and that's where being scientific is very important rather than doing what we think is useful. There was a time when something called critical incident stress debriefing, or CIS for short, or single session psychological debriefing was very popular. So that's gathering survivors in a group soon after the event, and each of them asking each of them to describe in detail what they saw, heard, and felt. So this was felt that it would be useful actually. But we now have fairly good evidence that this kind of forced one-off debriefing does not prevent post-traumatic stress disorder, and in some cases may even increase the risk of long-term trauma symptoms. For some people, being asked to retell everything in detail before they are ready, while they're still unsafe and exhausted, can reopen wounds instead of helping them to heal. So it can actually lock in the traumatic memory rather than letting the brain naturally kind of process it over time.
So, what should helpers do instead?
Yeah, what we now recommend is something called psychological first aid. Now, the WHO even has a booklet on that. This is not deep therapy. It does not involve pushing people to talk about the worst moments. Instead, it focuses on listening, providing practical support, and helping people feel safe, giving clear information and connecting them with social and medical resources. If someone wants to talk, of course, we listen with respect and without rushing, but we don't force people to relive events or go around a circle saying, "Tell us what you saw." Silence can sometimes be healing as well as speech.
Let's move forward in time a little. Let's say we've dealt with the immediate danger and people are in shelters or back in damaged homes. What kind of psychological reactions do you expect to see in the first few weeks?
In the weeks after a disaster, many people will experience strong, but let me emphasize, these are normal reactions. They might have difficulty sleeping, or they wake up with images of the water rising or the landslide coming down. Children may kind of cling to adults, fear the dark, or fear being separated. Adults might feel irritable, tearful, emotionally up and down from one moment to the next. And some people actually feel guilty about the fact that they have survived. And that's what we call survivor guilt. Others feel anger at authorities or at fate. Concentration becomes poor. It may be hard to focus on studying, reading, or even very simple tasks. Now, these are signs not of weakness, but these are perfectly normal reactions. These are signs of a nervous system trying to, well, digesting something quite enormous. And for many people, with time, support, and a gradual return to routines, these symptoms will fade naturally. Human beings are more resilient than we often realize, especially when they are embedded in families and communities that truly support them.
Are there particular groups we should pay special attention to in terms of psychological risk?
Yeah, while many people recover naturally, some are at a higher risk of developing long term problems like depression, post traumatic stress disorder, or harmful use of alcohol. Uh, Meta analysis or studies of disasters, including floods, cyclones, earthquakes, and tsunamis, show increased rates of anxiety, depression, and PTSD, especially among those with high exposure, severe loss, or people with prior mental health problems. So people at higher risk include those who have lost a close family member, especially children or a partner, those who have suffered severe injury, those who were trapped or directly saw death, and people who have lived with depression, psychosis, addiction, or previous trauma, or those who have very little social support, for example, the very elderly, or people who are already socially isolated, are at higher risk. Children and adolescents need particular attention. For example, after the 2004 tsunami in Sri Lanka, studies found high rates of PTSD and other emotional problems among both adults and children, even months later. So we need to watch out for signs that somebody is not simply distressed but stuck. So persistent nightmares, extreme avoidance of anything that reminds them of the event, constant jumpiness, deep hopelessness or thoughts that life is not worth living. Now, these are signals to seek professional help.
Let's turn now to something very practical. What can each person do starting today to support their own psychological recovery if they've been directly affected by this disaster?
Yeah, for survivors, I would say, well, three things. First, be gentle with yourself. You have been through something pretty terrible. It is not realistic to expect yourself to function at 100% right now. So, feeling tired, tearful, distracted, numb does not mean you are failing. It means your mind and body are using the energy to cope and adapt. And the second point is to focus on small steps. You may not be able to rebuild the house or replace everything you have lost in a week, but you can focus on today, getting enough water, eating, looking after the children, taking a short rest when possible. Even simple routines like washing, changing clothes, sharing a cup of tea with someone helps the nervous system feel that life still has a shape. And thirdly, maybe the most important is to talk to people you trust, even if you don't want to talk about the event yourself or the event itself. You can talk about practical matters, about memories, about your worries, about the future. You don't have to carry your thoughts alone. But if you find yourself withdrawing completely, try to gently reverse that by reaching out to at least one person each day. But at any point, if you find that you are overwhelmed by thoughts of death or you feel that you might hurt yourself, then it's time to tell somebody immediately. Tell a family member, doctor, religious leader, or even a volunteer in the community, anyone you trust, and ask them to help you to get professional support.
Many people listening might not be directly affected, but they have relatives or friends in disaster areas, or they're hosting displaced families. How can they support recovery without overstepping or saying the wrong thing?
Yeah, the most valuable thing you can give is your presence. You don't need to have very clever words. You don't have to, well, kind of within quotes, fix the situation. Just being there, listening, sitting with someone, helping with daily tasks is powerful. Without asking, oh, tell me what happened, you can say, I'm here with you. How are things today? What can we do to help right now? Some people will want to talk in detail, others won't, but both are okay. Avoid minimizing the experience with phrases like at least you are alive or others have it worse. While these may be actually factually true, they can make people feel that their pain is being, well, minimized or dismissed. A better response would be, I can't imagine how hard this is, but I'm glad you are here. How can I stand with you in this? Practical help is also a form of psychological support. Offers to look after children while parents sort out documents, help with cleaning mud out of houses, bringing meals, assisting with paperwork for compensation and aid. When people see that they are not forgotten, it reduces the sense of abandonment and increases hope.
What about volunteers, especially those coming from other parts of the country or even from abroad? What's the psychologically helpful way to intervene?
Yeah, for volunteers, the same principles apply. You start with the basic needs and the practical tasks. So help to distribute supplies in an organized and respectful way. Support the elderly or disabled people to access services, provide information clearly and honestly, ask local leaders what is most needed rather than coming with your own ideas. Psychologically, your calm presence, your respectful attitude, your willingness to listen are more valuable than any clever technique. If someone begins to cry or talk, you don't need to stop them, drag them deeper. Just listen, acknowledge. And if they don't want to talk, don't push. And please avoid mass debriefing sessions where everyone is asked to share their worst memories in detail, especially in the first days and weeks. And as we discussed earlier, evidence suggests this can be unhelpful or even harmful for some survivors. And major organizations no longer recommend this as a routine practice. If you're a professional, a doctor, nurse, counselor, teacher, remember that you have to take care of yourself as well. Helpers are also at risk of burnout and trauma. So eat, drink water, rest when you can, debrief with your colleagues, and give yourself permission to feel sad or shaken. After all, you are a human being as well.
You mentioned children earlier, Prof. Ravin. Some of our listeners may be parents, teachers, or relatives caring for children in temporary shelters or damaged communities. What are some key things they can do for the psychological recovery of children?
Yeah, children often express distress through behavior rather than words. So they may become clingy, have nightmares, be afraid of rain, show tantrums, or revert to earlier behaviors like bedwetting. The most important thing adults can offer them is a sense of safety and predictability. Explain in age appropriate language what has happened and what is being done. But don't give false promises like nothing bad will ever happen again, or but you can say the big storm is over, we are in a safe place now, and many adults are working to help us. And the very important thing is keeping routine. So regular meal times, sleep times, rituals like whatever you did at the end of the day. Uh, Encouraging play. Playing games is very important. Even in a camp, it's not frivolous activity. It is how children process and regain a sense of control. Adding to that, even having school time in whatever way is possible is a very important part of this process. So be patient with questions and fears. If a child wants to talk about what they saw, listen and reassure them that their feelings are okay. If they don't want to talk, you don't need to force it. Drawing and playing, being close to trusted adults are often enough in the early stages. And if months go by and a child is still extremely fearful, withdrawn, not speaking, or showing disturbed behavior, then it's time to seek professional help. However, thankfully, these children are in the minority, not in the majority.
We're coming to the end of our time. Sri Lanka has been through a war, tsunami, more than one economic crisis, and now this disaster. Sometimes it feels like the country is being asked to endure more than it can bear. What message would you like to leave with people who are listening from shelters, from relatives' houses, or even from afar, watching all of this unfold?
Yeah, well, I would say, well, disasters shatter buildings and roads, but at the end of the day, it also reveals the strength of human connection. And when we look at long-term studies from previous disasters in Sri Lanka, not only study, but when you look at what happened, we see pain, yes, high levels of depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress in some people. But we also know that there's remarkable resilience, communities reorganizing, neighbors helping neighbors, families rebuilding lives even after unimaginable loss. Right now, you may feel quite powerless, but well, every person has a role. If you're affected, your role is to survive, to accept help, to rest when you can, and to be kind to yourself in your thoughts. If you're a neighbor or a relative, your role is to show up, listen, offer practical support. If you're a volunteer, your role is to respect dignity, to coordinate, and to avoid harm with rushed psychological interventions. If you're in the diaspora, in safer parts of the country, your role may be to donate, advocate, and remember that this story will not end when the water goes down. Recovery will take time. It will take years sometimes. The psychological effects of disaster are real, but they are not destiny. With safety, shelter, food, honest information, and human connection, most people will gradually find a way to carry their grief and rebuild meaning. Our job as individuals and as a society is to make sure that nobody has to do that alone.
Thank you, Prof. Ravin. And to everyone listening, if you are in the affected areas, our thoughts are with you. And if you are safe, consider how you might be a part of someone else's recovery, even in a small way. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.